Hi guys, it is April from Getting Hooked With It. Today I'm here to chat with you about the books. This was originally going to be like a spring TBR. Now it's a self-isolation / spring TBR. So let's get into it. The world is a little bit different right now. I think we can all agree. Everyone is kind of hunkering down, practicing social distancing. I mean, Barry and Nora and I don't really go anywhere unless we need to pop out for groceries. Even that, we're trying to do a lot of that online. Or if we need to go to my parents' house to like get something for Libby. Libby is staying over at my parents' house right now, which I think is a good idea. I think she's a nice little breath of fresh air for them, and then Nora is a breath of fresh air for us. So yes, that said, I was thinking about my spring TBR, as I do, for weeks. And then this hit and I went, some of it is the same kind of thing that I would normally pick, and then some of it is a little different. So I'm going to start out with the little different ones. The first book is a book that I don't actually have physically quite yet. It's coming. And it's All the Bright Heavens. Now, this is about the Spanish flu. A lot of people right now would not be able to read this. I might not be able to read this. It takes place in the early 1900s. And we follow a family in Philadelphia who take in a baby because the Spanish flu has hit, and I think this baby was orphaned and they take the baby in. And it's about this family banding together, I believe. Yeah, this is gonna hit close to home because this COVID-19 thing, we don't know what it's going to be like. Obviously, there are major, huge differences between now and Spanish flu times. Like, science has come such a far way. I have a lot of faith in the science community. I mean, if it wasn't for the science community, we wouldn't have Nora. And if it was the early 1900s, we wouldn't have been able to have Nora at all. But I wanted to buy this and pick this up because I like to read books that kind of help you along uncharted territories and things that aren't addressed very often. This is one of them. And I don't know if this family will have anything that might inspire me and help me get through these days, but I wanted to pick that one up, so I'm going to hopefully read that. I have so many books, by the way. I have probably around 12 books, which is very rare for me for my spring TBR. Or any like seasonal TBRs, I never do that. Another book that's very of the moment, I would say, is an isolation book. This is A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles. I've been wanting to read this. This is on my TBR for 2020. This was loved by Call Me After Coffee. And this follows a man. He's a Russian count, and he is sentenced to isolation, essentially, house arrest in this huge hotel. And he takes one of the rooms in this hotel and he witnesses the Russian Revolution while he's in custody. And it just sounds very interesting. And I don't know honestly whether those two books are going to be for me. But I thought, of all times, those two books probably reflect what's going on in the world and in my life the most. So I thought I would put them on the TBR and like not pressure myself. If I don't feel like reading them, I won't. Then I've got a bunch of books that are like, the theme is basically the world will never be the same again for many of these characters. So the first is Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. This is a chunker. This was really, really well loved by Katie from Life Between Words, and so I've decided to read it in 2020. This is probably, well, one of the biggest books I'll ever read, but it would be the biggest book I'll read in 2020 most likely. And this takes place during the Civil War. We follow Scarlett O'Hara, who's very well known and well hated, and she lives in the South, and it is about her devious ways and I think her love interest. I've watched the movie several times, but so many years ago now that I wouldn't know all of the intricacies. Why can't I think of that word? Whoa, where did my brain go? So yeah, I thought this would be really good because this is about the Civil War, and she's on the wrong side of history, and her life as she knew it would never be the same after going through it. So I thought that would be a really good one to read right about now. Homefire is next. This is about a woman who is able to move to America, but back home she's leaving behind her sister and her brother, and she's really worried about both of them. She's particularly worried about her brother because he is trying to live out her father's jihadist dreams, and it's about that feeling of being torn into two pieces, basically. Your own future, where your world that you're leaving behind is behind you and you're able to move forward, and then also being held back by the past. And I've heard amazing things about Homefire, so that is something that I'd like to read in the spring. Wow, my brain today. And then the last one is What Alice Forgot by Liane Moriarty. I'm in the mood for a Liane Moriarty. One of my best friends has been just like binge reading all of her books, and so I don't know, I've decided to hop on the train. And this follows a woman who falls when she's at the gym, and she, I think, goes into a coma, and when she wakes up she thinks that it's like several years ago, like 2 years ago or something, where she's like pregnant with her first child. She's happily married, but in reality she's in the process of getting a divorce, and she has like several children, and her life as she knew it is gone, and she has to kind of come to terms with what's going on in her new life. She doesn't recognize herself within that life, and she's trying to sort it out, and it sounds really, really great. Another thing that I just always need in the mix is thrillers. Shocking. And here's a new one that's coming out in June, on June 23rd. It's called The Girl from Widow Hills. The Girl from Widow Hills by Megan Miranda. And this sounds phenomenal. This was kindly sent to me by Simon & Schuster, Canada. So thank you guys for sending this over. This is about a girl who was 6 years old when she left her home sleepwalking and was swept away in the middle of the night in a rainstorm, and she's found like clinging to like a storm drain or something like that. And so this whole community had been looking for her. They're so celebratory when she's found. She's thought of as this like miracle child, the girl that survived. And every year there's this kind of celebration, but it's an anniversary every year of this giant event that happened in her life, and people want to interview her, and she like just can't stand the anniversary. And one day when she's old enough, she's just like, I'm leaving that life and moving on. So she changes her name, she changes locations, and on the 20th anniversary of that rescue, she finds that she's being watched, and she starts sleepwalking again. And just that premise, I need to read this. I need to. No surprise to anyone, I'm going to read the next installment in the Frida Klein series, and that is Thursday's Children by Nikki French. In this book, we meet Frida Klein, who is a psychotherapist, and an old classmate of hers bumps into her. Now, if you know Frida and you started reading this series, she's not really one for like small talk. She's like, let's get to business. Very empathetic, but like let's get to business. Let's talk about the real stuff here. Anyway, this old acquaintance of hers opens up about her child, Becky, who is in a lot of hot water. She has really been struggling because Becky says that she was raped in her own bed one night while her mother was downstairs watching television. Her assailant left her with a warning. Don't think of telling anyone, sweetheart. Nobody will believe you, and no one does. But of course, Frida does because she's a good person. So then, sadly, Becky is found hanging from a beam in her bedroom. And so Frida, I think, goes back to her hometown to solve this mystery and help out with the family. And we've never been back to Frida's hometown. She's like a London girl through and through. And there is a lot of history in Frida's family history that I know I want to dive into so badly. Like, that's a mystery in and of itself that I'm so curious about. Love Frida. So, another thing, now we're moving slightly into a little bit into the stuff that I usually really want to read in the spring. And the first is Jane Austen. I always want to read Jane Austen in the spring. This is my last Jane Austen that I've not read, which makes me very sad, but also eager to read it. It's Mansfield Park. This was loved by Olive from A Book Olive. It was one of her favorites of 2019, so it went on to my 2020 TBR, and here I am, and I want to read it. This follows Fanny Price. She is brought up by her aunt and uncle. She lives with these rich cousins of hers in Mansfield Park. When Fanny's uncle goes away for a trip, Mary Crawford and her brother Henry arrive in the neighborhood, and they bring with them like glitz and glamour. And her cousins are really, really excited and get swept up in all of this hoopla, but Fanny doesn't really trust it. And it's about their story, and it just sounds great. And I think I'd like to listen to this on audio. Another thing that I always want to read in this time of year, or any time of year really, is a historical fiction mystery where you kind of go back and forth in time trying to dig up the mysteries of the past. And who does that better than Kate Morton? This is The House at Riverton. This is my last Kate Morton that I have to read. And then I'm all caught up with her books, and that makes me very sad as well. So this one faces Grace Bradley, who is a servant at Riverton House. And I don't know if she is close to the daughters of this wealthy family, Hannah and Emmeline, but they're all brought together in the summer of 1924 at a party when a poet shoots himself. There are two witnesses, these girls, these sisters, Hannah and Emmeline, and Grace also knows what actually happened. It's been a bit of a mystery. This like binds them together. And so many years later, Grace is living out her old age in a nursing home, and she gets a visit from a director who's making a film about the events that took place that summer. And it brings all of her memories back from that time. And it's so classic Kate Morton, and I know that I'm safe in her hands, usually. Unless there's something about infertility in there, and then I'm not safe. Haha. Okay, so next up is A Keeper by Graham Norton. So Graham Norton is an actual like TV host, like a late night TV host. He has celebrities on his show, The Graham Norton Show. He wrote a book, and it's like a mystery historical fiction book. So this follows a woman who goes back to Ireland after her mom dies, and she's just there to like go through her mom's belongings, sort out her stuff, her papers and everything. And then she finds a packet of letters, like a stack of letters that I think her mom wrote. And we flash backwards 40 years when a young woman stumbles on a remote stone house. And I think it explains the story of that person. Maybe it is her mother. I don't know. I'm assuming so. It sounds really, really great. So definitely those I'd like to read as well. And I've got 3 more books. So the last 3 are also things that I think I'd like to read right now because I think they're going to touch on the importance of gratitude and the importance of kindness to each other. Kindness is something that's so nice to be seeing right now. It's very uplifting. We've been in such a divisive kind of world, and I feel like a lot of people are banding together right now and doing little acts of kindness that are very nice. And so I want to read books about that, like mental health kind of things that'll boost my mood. So the first is Anne of Green Gables by Ella Montgomery. This, you probably know, follows an orphan named Anne Shirley, and she moves to PEI. There's a brother and sister who have this farm called Green Gables, and they've decided that they want to adopt a boy to help out around the farm. And then instead, Anne shows up, and they're like, "You're not a boy." But they decide to keep her, and it's about how Anne changes their lives and their kindness towards her and her kindness towards others. And also the mischief she gets up to. She's fantastic. So Anne of Green Gables, I want to read it. Next is a book that my mom really loved. She read it late last year, and she said it was one of her all-time favorite books now. And it's When All Is Said by Anne Griffin. This is about a man who is 80 years old. He's Irish, and we meet him at a bar, a little Irish bar, where he's going to sit you down and tell you kind of the story of his life in 5 toasts. And it's basically he's raising his glass to 5 people in his life and how they impacted his life. And it just doesn't that sound so wonderful? I think I'm going to cry. I think I am, and I'm ready for it. And the last one is very much mental health related, and I'm so eager to read it. It's Maybe You Should Talk to Someone by Lori Gottlieb. This was sent to me by Dawn, who is so nice. One of my subscribers sent this over to me. This was one of her favorite books from last year. And this is about a therapist who goes to therapy. It's supposed to be really funny. And right about now, I could use a little humor, and I could also use some wisdom. And I feel like I'm just going to get so much of that in here. I'm so, so excited. So is anybody else tired? That was a lot. That was a lot of books to go through. But I'm really eager for all of them for very different reasons. A little nervous about A Gentleman in Moscow. A little nervous about All Right Things in Heaven. What was that called? I can't remember. All the Bright Heavens. I had to look at my sheet of paper. Yeah, but we'll see if I get to those. But I'm super excited about my stack. Let me know in the comments below, what are you reading these days? Yes, we can talk about spring. Let me know what you want to read for spring. But also, what are you reading these days where we're all stuck at home? And there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of kindness happening too, but what are you reaching for? Right now I've been reaching for a lot of thrillers, but I'm kind of curious what everyone is reaching for at this moment. I hope that you guys are doing super well. In the description box below, you can go and check me out on Goodreads. Let's be friends on Goodreads. I'm over on Instagram as well. That will be in the description box below. And also you can go and check out my Amazon wish list. I just recently did a post. I asked everyone to vote for which books I should pick up from my Amazon wish list. I got 2 based on your votes. So that video is going to be upcoming as well. And then I did a whole other book haul from Book Outlet because stress book buying. So that will be coming. I hope you were well. I'm gonna stop rambling. I love you all. Sending you lots and lots of love and just positive thoughts. I will talk with you soon. Bye.